And Tuesday, December 10th, Almont Board of Education work session to order at 6:01 p.m. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Walton, roll call please.
Mr. Wade. Here. Ms. Frederickson.
Here.
Mr. Burrow. Here. Mr. St. Ange. Here. Mr. Rotarius.
Here.
Mr. Walton here. Ms. Smith.
Here.
7 members.
Mrs. Van Heltmeyer, any adoption of agenda for additions or deletions? No. Okay.
Takes us to communications, and we have Mr. Spear with us tonight to present an Almont High School handbook update to the board.
Good evening, folks. Tuesday.
Hello.
Thank you for giving me a second of your time. So just a couple of brief graphics I wanted to display to you all. Just to be very clear, I'd announced kind of to community, to staff, that I was looking to propose a handbook amendment just to give a little bit more agency to our administrative teams through all the buildings when it comes to determining discipline. This is something that I'd like to start here at the high school, and knowing that we are still like kind of learning what it looks like to have restorative practices, or what restorative practices might be able to do for Almont. I wanted to get some voice from staff and from the community. So what I'm trying to show you, and you know,
Mr. Allen, could you assist? It's not connecting.
Yeah. What I am attempting to show you is just a couple of charts that will show some feedback that I received from the community and from staff. I'm a lover of technology. What I can tell you is, while we're waiting for this, I can just go through some of the. Well, I don't know that it's going to work, so we might just move on. Show must go on. But
Well, you could send it to us.
I'm happy to send that to you, and I can just briefly talk to you through it right now. Just to let you know, we had 88% of students and families say that they approve, and we had 73% of staff say that they approve this. And the proposal is very simple. All it just says, and I have it in plain language, I'm happy to send to the board, but all it just says is that all disciplinary actions are at the discretion of the administrator or administrative team, if applicable, and any prescribed discipline in the following pages are suggestions, possibilities, or examples of past practices that do not necessarily reflect a definitive response to a behavior. All disciplinary situations will be fully investigated, and any disciplinary actions will always include the following considerations to a final decision: the severity of the behavior, and if it is a safety concern, if due process has been given to all parties involved, if there is a pattern to this behavior, or if the student has no history of it prior, the student's willingness to take accountability for the behavior and repair the harm caused, the student's IEP or 504 status, and the input of those impacted by the behavior. So that is all it has to be added, no other changes or anything like that. That is the proposal. And that is the feedback that was given based on those surveys. But yeah, that's what I was hoping to present to you, and I'm happy to send it to the board. I appreciate your patience as we all navigate the wonders of technology.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So you said 88% of students and families out of how many turned in the survey?
A total of 95 over the course of a week and a half.
So 88% of 95
Yes, ma'am.
students
And-
K-12?
No, just
Just
8
high
through 12
school.
because this is where it would be applying to currently.
Okay, and how many staff members replied?
49.
49?
Yes, now that was across all buildings because we were trying to get a pulse just as ACS how the staff felt.
And in staff, are you talking the,
Teaching staff, I'm sorry, yes.
okay, teaching staff?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that doesn't
I mean, all people were asked, all staff, so parapros could have weighed in, it was available
Okay,
to, but
that's what
those,
I'm asking.
but yes, I'm sorry, so it was made available to staff, teaching staff primarily identified that they were the ones who weighed in.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, any other questions? And thank you for that, any other questions? Yes, sir.
You mentioned possibly taking this to the middle school, to the OP, or
Um,
something to that effect? Is that what you
If
thought?
we, I would propose that type of change if we find success there in the high school, yes, sir.
And, I mean, so in my line of work, we sometimes call it intentionally vague, right? There's the openness there that you can make those decisions and that discretion. Does this still include restorative practices?
Absolutely, and 100%. This is made with restorative practices in mind, but with the understanding that, you know, again, there still is accountability for our actions, there are still consequences for our actions, but they're done for the best interest of the student. And I feel that putting that language in there to consider all of those factors does help operate in the best terms of the student.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry to come back.
No,
so
of
quickly.
course, thank you.
No, what I really liked that you're bringing forward is this is available now for parents to have a better understanding of the process that you are required by law to follow in many instances that sometimes the parents aren't aware of and don't understand as much. So I do like some of the things that you're incorporating in this.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other questions?
Thank you so much for
Thank
everybody's time.
Thank you, Mr. Spear.
I'll make sure to send that to you all, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Allen, hope we're not going to struggle with should I try to log on just for our Zoom coming up in a little bit? I just want to make sure we're having a tech issue. I'd like you to try to address it if you can. Just we have a Zoom at 6:30. So it looks like I'm not going to get on.
Just in a minute.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, no, I know what it is, but I feel like there's something else reason.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next one up, we are going to have Mr. Forty. We have Mr. Forty here with some students. Mr. Forty to give us an update on the new course, our sports officiating class. Please introduce the students, Mr. Forty.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
See if I can hook up here. This is Luke and Zoe. They're presently in the sports officiating class.
Hey, you may want to stand somewhere else. Camera be right behind you.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, no, stand there, please.
Show me the best side, Luke. All right, so I'm here to talk to you tonight about sports officiating class. It's a new class that's offered this year in the fall for one semester. The reason they came about with this course is because there's a dire need of sports officials. So I'm an official myself when I'm not coaching and teaching, so I thought this was a great opportunity for students to have to possibly make some extra money. Just alone last week, just to give you an example, I was officiating, I worked some basketball games, made $800 officiating. So I'm trying to press upon these kids that you can make money out there, and it's not that hard to do. It's a good thing to do if you want to stay involved in sports. It's a good way to make some extra cash for a student especially. And then, like my son, for example, he would come home on the weekends and he would officiate and use that as his part-time job. Cole Walton just graduated last year. He officiates on Saturday afternoons for me. I assign some youth football games, and he makes some good cash on the weekends. You can't make that cash anywhere else. McDonald's, Burger King, things like that. 2 or 3 hours out on a Saturday afternoon, making some good money. So, just a brief overview. This is from the MHSAA website. So I highlighted there some of the things that should be looked at. The average age of officials is 52 years old. So it's a tough thing to do, but once you get in it, it's good. It's a good way to make money. You know, the parents that you have to deal with sometimes is the thing you got to get past. But you see, not enough young officials in the game, and we're not retaining enough young officials. So again, this is a way to get them involved and hopefully be able to continue to play sports, because high school sports, us personally here at Almont, we've had games canceled before or moved around because we don't have enough officials. So this is a way to get them involved in the game, and again, an opportunity to make some money. So, you know, a need for more officials, so you can kind of look that over. Again, the average age there. So the MHSAA, if people aren't familiar with this, the Michigan High School Athletic Association, they are what kind of oversees the whole high school athletics, officials as well. So that's what you go through. And then they came up with, in conjunction with the MHSAA, some people came up with the reps, officiating education system, which you can see there. It's a curriculum that allows students and myself as the teacher to guide these students and get them on the course to get registered to officiate sports. So I'll show you the website here and kind of guide you through a little bit of the curriculum. So this is what it looks like, the reps. It kind of introduces you to things. You can read it over. Everybody can go to this website and check it out if you would like to. So it kind of gives a brief overview, tells everybody what it's about, what their goal is there. The different states that are involved here across. You can see the MHSA is one, Ohio, Illinois, things like that. Peyton Manning is an advocate for it. You can see there, I'm not going to play that, but he's an advocate for it, spokesman for it. And then you can see these are the sports that are available for students to take. When we first started, this is again the first time doing this, so it was kind of a learning process for me as well. The students are allowed to pick the sports. Initially, I didn't know that they were allowed to do that, so we all picked 3 sports that we were going to study. One of them was football, so we went through the course together and we did football. But you can see there, so like, just for example, Zoe is going to choose volleyball and look at volleyball. Luke is going to look at baseball, just the interest and so forth. Not to be sexist or anything, but you know, she was more interested in the volleyball. Luke, not so much. Didn't play it and so forth. So she's going to look at the volleyball and he's going to look at the baseball. So, and they can kind of go at their own pace. So those are the sports. And then they offer some extra video packs. I'm going to get more into that in a second. So when we look at football in particular here, what goes on is there's different modules, they call them. So as you can see, there's 14 modules here. And within each module, so if you click on the module, there's videos. So this is what the students are required to watch. And then I'll kind of let them tell you what we do with the modules and so forth, and then I'll kind of continue.
So basically how our guys has done it is we go through each of the videos, and at each one of like the end of the modules there's a quiz. And what happens is we'll watch all the videos on our own time, and then usually like 1 or 2 times a week we'll have the quiz because we finish the module. So we'll go through, do all like the videos, and then at the end we'll take the quiz on our own, and then we'll go over it as a class just to make sure that we like have like the right like thing in our head of like what is actually going on.
So what happens is, like she said, the students are not allowed to take the quiz until they've watched the videos. So each one, like Luke and Zoe here, they are logged on and it shows you their progress. So they have to watch the videos on their own before they can take the quiz. They can't oh yeah, I watched the videos and then we're taking the quiz and they take the quiz. No, it doesn't work like that. They have to watch the videos. So then at the end, just for example here, this one doesn't have the quiz, but, so they'll ask a 10 question quiz, so they answer these questions, and then what we do, they're allowed to take the quiz as many times as I allow them to, so I can kind of set the parameters. I don't want any student failing. You know, we want to be there and we want to pass the class and so forth. So they take it on their own. If they don't pass it, then they're allowed to take it again. They're only allowed to take it twice. I allowed. So what we do though is after every student has kind of passed it, we go through and then we talk about it. So if you show the answers there, see if you can know any of them. But it tells you the answers, and then we go through and we explain to them in a little bit more depth. Mr. Spear came in and observed one class, and you know, me being a football coach and a football official, I'm able to kind of show them the different rules and so forth, and explain to them a little bit more in depth and in detail, so that they do in fact understand it. And they're not like, okay, yeah, that's the rule, but how does it work? So we kind of go in depth there and show them how things work. And then the ultimate goal is to allow them the opportunity to become registered officials. So they have what this program is called, it's a legacy program. And you can see there it's 9th and 10th, well, it's 9th grade through 12th grade students. If they're a 9th or 10th grader, which that doesn't really pertain to us because I tried to keep it to 11th and 12th graders so that they are able to officiate at the high school level. So 11th and 12th graders there, you can see sub-varsity, which means middle school and then freshman, JV. So they're allowed to work those games with a mentor. So me being involved in this, I can be their mentor, and what it allows them to do is officiate with someone who's a registered official, and they can make money. And it's not one of those things where they have to go out and they're in training where they have to still learn and so forth, and they don't get paid for it. They actually get paid for it like they're a registered official. This is I highlighted here, this is the normal registration, the standard there, $70 you can see. That's what people like me have to pay. Being students in the legacy program, they only have to pay $38. And then for every sport above and beyond one sport, it's $16 additional dollars, which they're going to recoup that in one game, if right away. So, and then plus some. So they get that discount. So at the end of the course, if they choose to, they can take this test and become actual registered officials and be a part of this legacy program. And then here's just a quick breakdown. You kind of get an idea of how much officials pay. So up there at the very top, it's kind of small, I know, but this is a breakdown of the 2022-2023 school year. Baseball up there, you can see how much money officials are paid at each level, freshman, JV, and varsity. So just get a little bit idea of the opportunity that's there to make some extra cash. So, you want to say anything, Luke?
About this slide, or?
No, just about anything in general.
Like something I like about the class?
Yeah.
I like that it is relative to the real world, where a lot of classes aren't really applicable at this age, like math or something. I'm not going to use it in the real world as much as I can with this. I can use this as a job outside of school and make actual money, which I feel like is rare in school at my age right now. So I really like that about the class.
And the other thing too, which I think is a useful resource, is myself, because again, like I said, I'm active in the officiating world. I assigned to youth football, so I give these guys opportunities, which none of them took, but I had opportunities on some Saturday afternoons to officiate. And I tell you, if Cole was here, he'd be the first one to tell you, oh yeah, it's, you know, easy money, so to speak, and it's good money. So,
It took me 1 week.
well, yeah, and you've done it as well. But you know, after they get their first little taste of doing it and so forth, it's a good thing for them, and they want to keep doing it. So, and again, Cole, and then I have a couple other former students that do it, and they weren't in this class, but I'm hoping to kind of get other students involved give them opportunities. So, anybody have any questions or anything?
Mr. Forty, first off, I mean, I love the program. I know of other schools that are doing it. How many kids did you have in the class this year?
I think I have, what do we have, 17?
16, 17.
16, 17 kids, yeah.
Okay. Is it possible maybe to get a grant to pay for them to take the officiating exams? Whether you pass or fail, it'd be nice if it was paid for, in
Right.
the future.
So, two things to answer that. First of all, that we do pay for upfront this course. So, for example, each student has to be paid for what they call seats. So we do pay, the school budgeted it in, because I talked to Mr. Shiffitt last year to get this course going. So it's budgeted in, so that's paid for. So in addition to, though, if we can, and my plan is, so they can take the test. And what they do is, the test is online, they register to take the test, and then they're given the rules books. I want to help them take the test so they do pass it. So, okay, Luke wants to get registered for football. He comes in and he takes the test in class. And then that way, he's kind of hung up on a question a little bit, because you can use the rules books right there. So, not like you're cheating, but they want you to pass it, like you're saying. So, and I want them to pass it as well. So I would be there, and if he's hung up on a question, all right, let's talk this through. Let's figure it out so I can help him get the correct answer so that he can in fact pass. So that he doesn't have to take it multiple times. So that would be a great idea. Yes, for sure, if they could get it paid for, because more of them would probably try to get registered then and take that test.
Okay,
So.
Secondarily, you said that the first unit that they went through, everybody went through football, and then do they get to choose the other two on their own? Is that what you made the choice to do?
That is the plan now, because like I said, at the beginning, I didn't know, so we voted, and the consensus was to do the 3 sports. And then upon further investigation, I talked to the people who are involved in the ref reps, and they said, no, you can pick one sport, he can pick another. So you go at your own pace somewhat. But what I didn't want to happen was, I didn't want to not be able to address your issues, concerns, whatever it may be. I want to be there to teach you how to do things, not just be sitting there and you just kind of go and, you know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah.
So I wanted them to learn along the way, more or less. So.
Well, especially first time through.
Yeah.
That
So
helps it certainly a lot
we
too.
learned.
Is this a course that you'd be willing to open up to 10th graders? Because, I mean, there are a lot of times there are no officials at all for middle school.
Right.
And,
right.
I mean, yeah, you'd like to partner them up with a strong mentor, and sometimes just having a body there to tweet for, balls in, balls out. Oh, she stepped on the line for volleyball.
Yeah.
And you make $100 for doing, the 7th grade or the 8th grade, so.
Yeah, you know how it is. You're involved.
Yeah.
You're actively involved in volleyball,
Yeah.
so you know.
So, now, both of you, Luke, are you definitely going on, and do you think you're going to do this in the future?
Yes, I'll definitely be doing football when I'm older and baseball, hopefully next year, because I've already done some AYBA, and I would like to do that, yeah.
Wonderful. Zoe, what about you?
I'm still thinking about the football and I plan on going forward with the volleyball. I'm just not set on football yet, just because it's not my sport and I love doing volleyball.
That's
and
a
stuff
lot
like that.
to know in the football.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
thus,
it is nice when you're more comfortable with whatever sport, when
right,
you
and
open it
that's
up.
the reason why, because she was kind of not forced, but that's what everybody agreed to do.
Mhm.
So, and me not knowing at the beginning, so for them to be able to, softball, volleyball, whatever it may be. Some people are more football. I have some kids that are more soccer. So giving them an opportunity to kind of do what their thing is more advantageous, I think. So.
Oh, good. Thank you guys for coming tonight. This was, I really like this a lot.
And Mr.
And
Forty, I
we-
had the opportunity to push into, I actually was checking on Mr. Forty to make sure he was all set for tonight, and I happened to push into the sports officiating class and kind of took over the class for a few minutes to engage with the students and take a quick poll, but it really sounds like 100% of those students in class today are going to be pursuing, to get one of the certifications. So that was very encouraging. They're very engaged in in this course.
It's
So,
good money, you guys.
Yeah,
And
so
I
I really
couple
applaud
hours
you.
work.
Yeah. And Mr. Forty, thank you for doing this.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Zoe,
My
thank you.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank
I
you for
have a
being here.
question.
Yeah.
So as a student, they can get one certification or 3?
So how it works is, again, I didn't really explain that. So what they call it in the reps is seats. So if I just log on to mine here. So you see at the top here how it says 38 seats.
Yeah.
So the students then, they're allowed to do a maximum of 3 sports per semester. So it's not too overloaded. So when they introduce this course, it can either be a standalone course or it can be like in addition to like a team sports class or something like that, where you can do 1 sport or you can do as many as 3 if it's a semester-long class. So they'll have the opportunity to get registered in 3 sports if they so choose. So at the end of this, they can register, and like I had up there, each additional sport was another $16. So it's just that fee that they want to pay, and if they want to pursue that and get registered. So,
That's
but three sports. So in all actuality, like these two here, they could get back in this class again next year if credit-wise it works out that way, where they could take the sports officiating class and get registered in another 2 or 3 other sports.
Yeah.
So,
Great. Thank
and I
you.
already had a couple say that they may want to try to get into it if credit-wise they're all set and their schedule allows. So,
One other
That's exciting.
thing, I'm sorry. How in-depth do you go into unruly parents and how to manage that type of situation? Because the reason that we don't have officials is because of parents and unsportsmanlike behavior. Hardest part of the job.
It is. It is. The thing you have to not have rabbit ears. You have to kind of tune that out. So we talked about it a little bit, probably not as much as we should though. I'm glad you brought that up because it's something that we should focus on a little bit more, because that's probably the biggest obstacle, really, in all of it. You can know the rules, you know what to do in certain situations, but the crowd yelling at you, the parents yelling at you, the coaches yelling at you, in different situations. So it's something that should be really talked about and reviewed.
Well, and, I mean, always know who the go-to person is in the facility, because if you got somebody that's on you about something, you get that athletic director over, and that's their job to take care of that. So,
Right.
just, we gotta protect our kids
Yeah. Oh yeah,
and our
100%.
officials.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Thank you so much, you guys.
Is it a semester or a year?
It's just a semester right now, so going into it, we thought, let's see how much interest it gauges. So we just have it this fall semester right now, and then hopefully, next fall we'll do it as well. And then maybe if enough students like it and want to take the course, then we can offer it in the spring, and then in the fall, and then in the winter as well. So maybe make it but it's a semester course, so then it would switch over at semester.
Thank you so much for
Thank you,
being
guys.
here.
Yep.
Zoe,
Thank you.
thank you so much. You guys.
Thank you.
I have to make a little bit of adjustment. I'm going to go to Parent Square, as we do have a guest coming on with us virtually. This is Jeremy Tignor from the Parent Square app. And as you know, board, we've been discussing a potential, something like Remind. You're probably a little bit more familiar with that app, but something in the nature of having that two-way communication and something a little bit more consistent as an app or a tool to use district-wide. So I'd like to have a little bit more conversation and a potential recommendation to pilot, if you will, Parent Square for the remainder of the school year. But I would like for us to engage with Jeremy Ticker from Parent Square. So I'm going to get on the Zoom with him. Colin, if this works, we should be good to go. be jumping on with us momentarily. And the speaker's on, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Perfect timing. Hi, Jeremy, can you hear me? I sure can. Oh, excellent. Yeah, thank you so much. Yep, 1 second here. Jeremy, just give us 1 second. The microphone. All right. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for being here. So we have the Board of Education sitting around the table here. I know you can't see everybody, but they are here in the room, along with some of our community members as well behind me. But thank you so much for agreeing to be here to provide a little bit of information, a little bit of background. As we discussed, we've been in a couple virtual meetings now with Brandon Marklin, our tech director, and myself. So please take it away as far as taking or providing some information on Parent Square and the two-way communication feature that you offer.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kimberly. And hello, everyone. Jeremy Tigner here. Thrilled to be with you all. Yeah, I'm here to share a little bit about Parent Square and our two-way messaging function. Now, a little bit about Parent Square. Our organization was founded by a talented software engineer who just wanted to be more connected with their child's classroom. And about nearly 15 years later, Parent Square is now serving roughly 40% of the nation's student population in the country, which is just wild to think about. I personally have helped school leaders communicate more effectively for about 20 years. We're very passionate about this endeavor. So with that, let me go ahead and show my screen, and I'm going to kind of show a couple things about Parent Square. Now, at a very high level, I want to just spend a moment on the challenge that we're out to solve. And then we'll dig in and we'll look at the two-way messaging. We'll actually kind of take a look at how it works. So the first thing I want to just talk about, and I'm assuming you guys can see my screen, should be a slide here that says Parent Square.
Yep, we can see it.
Excellent, I'm getting the nod, that's great. So before doing anything different, in school communities, we look across our community, across all of our stakeholders, all of our staff that are trying to communicate with guardians. And oftentimes the number of tools that are adopted it gets pretty high because like the tools that work for this individual don't necessarily work or aren't the preferred methods for someone else. And so guardians oftentimes they have their phone looks something like this where they've got the link for the parent portal, they've got a couple links for those classroom apps. Some of our more savvy guardians are trying to set up folders in their email inbox to try to make sense and sort it all out. And there's just an easier way, and that is Parent Square. We're designed to blend all things communication. While we're going to spend our time focusing on these two buckets right here, we're going to create a one-stop shop experience for our guardians so that we don't have a bunch of different places to have to go and check to stay informed with our child's classroom, our clubs and athletics and things like that. Now, before I get into the actual demonstration of Parent Square, I do want to talk a minute about our API integration with PowerSchool, the student information system that's used there. Now, API is just a fancy way of saying that Brandon and I, my team, will work together, and we'll ensure that when a new guardians will and staff will have inside of Parent Square all the connections that they need, and it's all predicated through this synchronization, this partnership that we have with PowerSchool. So when we do that, we're going to ensure that everyone's receiving communication on the modalities that matter most to them. Like way back in the day when I started my career, it was all about making phone calls really fast. And let's face it, people aren't answering their phones like they did 5, 6, 10 years ago. So we really have invested heavily on text, email, and for those that download the app, push notifications. Now, we're not going to spend a ton of time on this slide. I just wanted to kind of share that it's not just about sending email. It's not just about text. It's about meeting individuals where they consume content. Because guess what? If you ask people to go somewhere where it's not natural for them to like be a part of the communication, it's cumbersome, it's challenging, it's just not an effective form of communication. All right, let's change gears here. So Parent Square, this is what we're looking at here. This is the web interface of Parent Square. This is the mobile app. Now, I want to really underscore this point. The app for Parent Square and the website are absolutely not, 100% not a requirement to be informed about your child's classroom activities and to be notified of this and that. We will focus on the web and app because because otherwise, we might be just looking at like what something might look like via text or what something might look like via email, which we will do a little bit. But I just want to underscore that we think with PowerSchool, we automatically opt everyone into text, email, so that folks are going to receive communications where it matters most. Now, when somebody takes the time to download the app, guess what? They can receive app notifications as well, which is pretty awesome. I love the app notifications. All right, digging into the two-way. So in Parent Square, there's within the package that we're looking at, we're primarily looking at posts and messages. Those are the two modalities in which Parent Square are the two methods of initiating a notification that are included in this package. Posts support one-to-many in terms of communication. So let's say I'm a teacher or a principal or a coach, and I need to get a message out to all my parents and maybe even my students. I do a post, and I'm like communicating with everyone all at once. We'll look at that here in a moment. Messages, on the other hand, is about one-to-one or one to a few. So I can like have a conversation with an individual guardian about, maybe a student that's like having some challenges with a material, and I can send them like, study guides and additional. I can support that guardian or the student directly through, two-way messaging. So let's back up. Let's talk about posts for a moment, that one-to-many. So when I go to a post, individuals will find that this looks an awful lot like an email. It's very simple to use. We went at great lengths to make sure that folks didn't have to like adopt something that's totally foreign to them. Looks like email, right? So when a teacher's in Parent Square, they're going to automatically, from this drop-down, see their course or classes. So they wouldn't ever inadvertently send a message to someone that's not in their class, right? So let's just take this class right here. We're able to determine like who should see this. So are we sending this to parents, students, and maybe at the central office level we might want to notify staff here and there, right? And we have our subject line. And I'm just going to choose weekly recap there. And here's the body of our message. Now I can go into a lot more detail as far as like some of the really cool things we can do about like embedding video and building some like beautiful content here with these design blocks. But primarily what we're going to do is we're going to just load a template so that I can display this rather quickly, rather than you watching me have to like laboriously type out a message, which anytime I type in front of people, I tend to have a lot of misspellings. All right, so let's say I want to like add some things that are like aesthetically pleasing with this message. So I'm going to just like drag and drop an image in there, so I can just like kind of make it look, a little pretty. And then let's say I also want to, and I apologize, I didn't play this video beforehand, so it's going to probably play a pretty deal. I thought. Sorry, that wasn't very classy of me. But I wanted to grab a learning resource that I could include in the body of my message. So this is just about helping parents provide them with materials to help extend the learning day. Anyway, that was an oversight on my part, pardon that. Now there's some really cool post add-ons that can be added. They're not required, but pretty awesome. So let's say in this message, I put something about, let's say, the winter party, and it's going to be on Wednesday, and it's going to run from 9 a.m. to 11, just to demonstrate one of these. Now, while it's today, what is today, the 10th? Yeah, it's my wife's birthday, the 10th. There's a long time between now and the 18th for folks to forget. We can bake in a reminder, so the day before, folks are just reminded, hey, don't forget the family fun night or the winter party is taking place. I won't get into any more of these post add-ons, but as you can see, there's some pretty cool ones like forms and permissions, asking for physical items like school supplies, requesting volunteers. Hey, can you help us with this winter party? And there we go. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and send this out. There's some other really cool things about scheduling, but again, in the time allotted, I gotta keep it brief. It's hard to do for me. So I'm going to go ahead and click post now, and some things are going to happen, right? So I'm going to get a text message as a guardian. That's my 1-year-old little baby girl. Her name's Aurelia. I'm going to get a text message. I'm going to get a push notification. I would also get an email, right? So let's take the text message, for example. So the text message comes with a prefix, or it comes with a text. Goodness gracious, my words are not coming. But I know exactly what building this is coming from. So if I'm a parent and I have 3 kids in 3 different buildings, it's nothing any staff member at any building needs to do. It's just automatically stamped. So as a guardian, I better know what to do with this message. Now, my phone number is associated with a parent that speaks Spanish, which is why you see the subject line in Spanish and English. And then there's this recipient URL, right? So a lot of systems, they have really big challenges with messages that are longer than 300 characters. We've overcome that challenge by sending recipient-specific links where if I don't have the app, guess what? When I click this, it's going to open up in my default mobile browser. So I might use Safari, Chrome, Firefox, what have you. But because I have the app on my phone, I click the link and it opens up the app and it takes me directly to the material that I need to view. Remember that fall party, that calendar item? See where it says add to my device calendar? How cool is this for guardians to be able to just say, hey, that's something I want to make sure I don't forget. And you click it, and it automatically goes to the calendar connected to your smartphone, right? The calendar that matters most. So anyway, I'm able to review this message, play the video. It's not going to open up YouTube. It's not going to play any previews or any of that other stuff. And here it goes. Now, on the other side, for users, this is pretty cool. So often, communicators don't want to know, hey, did my message make it home? Did anybody view it? There's some really cool reporting that we do here, so I can see the guardian's name, the students in that household, the language they got it in. And by the way, we support translation in over 190 different languages, which is incredible. I can see specifics as to like what happened in each modality, but I may only care to see who viewed the message as opposed to who viewed it, right? Or maybe I'm more interested in who didn't, I don't know. But pretty cool here. There's some really neat settings that we can go into here. I think for the sake of time, I'll skip these, but I wanted to just be sure to showcase what a post would look like. On the email side, if you guys wanted to take a look at that, the email will look like this. So guardians will receive an email. The body of the message will be the entirety of the message, because email doesn't have the same limitations as like text and the character limitations that entails. So there we have it. All right, let's talk about direct messaging. So direct messaging, that's like one-to-one communication. So when I go into Parent Square and I click on direct message, and let's say I want to do a new message. And by the way, this is a repository of all the existing messages that I have. And for our families that may not speak English in their home, Parent Square is going to do the translation for them. So for example, this parent said, hey, when will the next test be? But they actually asked that question in Spanish, and I just replied in English, and they got it in Spanish. So 2 parties are communicating in the only language they know, and yet engagement has happened. Pretty cool, right? So we have direct messages and group conversations. Direct messages, think about that as like kind of one-to-one. Group is like you can add a bunch of people, and then we want to be really mindful of the frequency we use group messaging, because anybody that's in that group is now seeing any responses, whereas direct messages, it doesn't work like that. So I'm going to type a message in here. Let's see here. This individual here. And let's see here. What do I want to say? Goodness gracious. Goodness. I'm so sorry. I told you that I type very poorly in front of people. Percent of your child's grade. There we go. And I'm going to fix that misspelling there. Very well. And we're going to go ahead and send that out, right? And so on the Guardian side, they're going to get the text, they're going to get the email, they're going to get the push notification, and they can actually reply to the text. They can reply to the email. They can even reply to the push notification. They don't have to download the app in order to receive that message. Yeah, so this is, again, this phone number is connected to a parent that speaks Spanish. So they're receiving their communication in Spanish, right? At any rate, so that's what the two-way messaging looks like. Now, that's about as far as I think I'm gonna go, but I do want to touch on a couple little things as it relates to groups. Groups are awesome because this can house and support like after-school activities. It can support like parent groups like our PTO, things like that. And then finally, ParentsWare is also going to put all your communication through the lens of like these dashboards. So the school leadership can like really focus on actions in their data to ensure that we're communicating with ideally 100% of our parent audience. So ParentsWare is going to let the district know, hey, you know, this is the subset of parents that are simply unreachable because of a bad phone number or a bad email address. So this helps us ensure that we're, you know, not leaving anybody behind because of like, you know, we accidentally mistyped a phone number or mistyped an email when you registered at the beginning of the year. Kimberly, I think I'm going to pause there. Feel free to kind of guide me to like dig in on anything else that you might want to take a look at. But I just wanted to share that two-way messaging at a high level and see if there's anything else that you wanted to take a look at.
No, definitely. Jeremy, I do have a question just for clarification. The onboarding process, I know it's not obviously just like an overnight. We're going to be going into a holiday break here soon. Can you just reiterate how long the onboarding process would take?
Yeah, very well. Yeah, so onboarding generally takes 3 to 6 weeks for implementation. And the reason why it's like there's a variant there is that, you know, we acknowledge that, you know, the holiday seasons are upon us and there's vacations and, you know, winter has a nasty habit of like, you know, sending these, you know, colds and flus and different things like that. So we want to bake in a little bit of extra time so that we both collectively can like deliver on goods here. But at a really high level, we're going to, like let's say once the order comes in, we're going to have a conversation with you, Kimberly, and Brandon and various stakeholders, and we're really going to identify your definition of success. That matters because when we get to the very end, we're not, like, once we implement you, you're not alone. We're always going to be around. And we also are going to, like, circle back and say, hey, now that you're, like, you've launched and we're a few weeks into your implementation, is this what you expected? Is this, like, are you experiencing the success that you defined on day one? So that's important. Then we're going to do the data load. My team's going to build a custom API that you'll plug into PowerSchool, and we're just going to verify that the data is flowing correctly and that all the classes are rostered appropriately. Then there's going to be some training that's going to be completed. We've got lots of great trainings, even Guardian training, which I can speak to. But then there's a date that you'll launch, and then folks will begin using ParentsWare, and Guardians will have that one-stop shop experience, and you know, no longer feel like they're always missing something because they're going to like have a hub where they can go to, and all their communication is going to be captured in that one place. With regard to Guardian training, just to speak to that for a moment, since I kind of touched on it, when I click on the help, the little question mark up here, there's this thing called Help Articles. In the mobile app, it's located in a little bit different of a place. It's this little hamburger button. And on the left-hand side, I'm going to find this like conveniently named button called Help. It's going to take us to a place where we can load the help articles. Really, really cool, and being able to like get the resources we need, whether we're on a laptop, desktop, or our smartphone, right? So if I go into this section here, this is the parent, guardians, and students. This is content that's curated specifically for guardians. We have it both in Spanish and in English. And anywhere that you see a resource where there's a play button, it just means that there's a video resource there. We provide loads of great training. One other thing I'm going to share, and then I'll turn it back over to you, Kimberly, this classes and training section. When I click on classes and training, so you can see the parent and guardian training is right here. We have pre-recorded trainings, and we have online learning modules for those guardians that want to take the time to go through a training. But I promise you, if people don't generally get training for like Facebook and Instagram, the training's there for folks that want it, but like it's as easy as using any of those other tools that guardians have used in the past that didn't need training for. All right. What other things can I?
I'm gonna turn it over to the board to see if they have any questions. Jeremy, does anybody have any questions from the board? Yeah, of course.
Hi, Jeremy. Can you hear me?
I sure can.
Hey, thanks. This is Tim. Does the system allow for communication between users? Can students message students? Can parents message parents? Or are we, who sets permissions for who can communicate?
That's a fair question. I don't always, in these settings where there's combined, like where district leadership, school board, and guardians, that's usually where this question comes up. And the answer is no. We don't, like guardians are not communicating with guardians in ParentSquare. Students are not communicating with students inside of ParentSquare. With the guardians to guardians, there is one tiny caveat to that, and that would be specific permissions on an individual group. Like someone would have to like proactively go out of their way to like set this up. So let's say we have a PTO group, and I want the guardians to be able to interact with one another there. I can go into the unique settings to that one group, and I can allow folks to interact in a more meaningful way there. But again, you'd have to like really search that out. But on like the default behavior of ParentSquare is guardians are not interacting with guardians, students are not interacting with guardians. It's staff being able to distribute communication to stakeholders, be it parents, students, and being able to have those back and forth interactions when needed.
Okay, thank you.
Does that help, or did that behave how you would expect it to?
Yep, no, that's great. And then also, as far as, let's say, number of users, if, let's say that we have multiple parents or multiple family, or we want grandparents to have access, I mean, is there any limit to how many, users can be assigned to a kid or anything like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So how many guardians can be associated to any one student? There is no technical limitation to the number of guardians that can be associated to any one student. Not to get too much in the technical weeds here, but essentially when we build your custom plugin with PowerSchool, we're gonna ask you all to like define what guardian record types are gonna be included in that that you want included for this type of communication. You can add all of them, or you can be judicious about any subset of them. Conventional wisdom says, hey, like we're talking about like 10 guardians for any one student, then I'm not saying we won't do it. I'm just saying like let's talk about it, because like who is that? Who is the person? Who's the 10th person in that? And do we really want them to have that level of access? Maybe, but we also like try to help the district think through those types of things as well.
Thanks, and I have one more. This is my final one. Sorry. This is because we've had this complaint come up, and I want to see if there's something built in for this. Let's say a parent doesn't want their child to receive a message without their consent first. Is there a way for, let's say that a coach group wants to send a message to the team group, does a parent have the ability to monitor that and choose to allow the message through?
That's a good question. So the default, like the behavior in ParentSquare, and I'm trying to think through this. There is a way to like. I'm thinking here. This is a unique question. This is an outlier. I like it. It's causing me to like really think through things. What we can do is we can do like a do not sync. We have an option to like not sync a student roster, or not sync a student record, and that would then prevent them from receiving that communication. That's really the only way. There's not like a built-in like I need the guardian's consent before sending a communication to a student every time. I have districts that have with their, the paperwork that parents sign at the beginning of each year to like have ParentSquare consent baked into that, so it's just kind of part and parcel to it. But the only way to like prevent let me back up here for a second. First of all, student communication has to be enabled. So I didn't start with that. So, and generally speaking, ParentSquare is only, for student communication, is generally only supported, or generally supported for students age 13 and above. There's this provision called COPA, now that exists. It's, feel free to look it up. It's an acronym, COP. I think it's 1P, maybe 2A. Forgive me there. But anyway, it's about digital communication for students under the age of 13. Some of my customers do have that, but they have to have that written consent before communicating with students under that age. So that might be kind of behind what you're asking, perhaps. Trying to think.
I know that's a tough question, and maybe it's a general, you consent to have your child in. I guess the only situation would come up is if the child joins a new group and they join a new team, that it's not baked in that parent consent has to happen first. And again, I bring it up because that's a unique complaint we've had about communications. So.
One thing I will throw out as it relates to this, and going back to that core challenge that we talked about before, where there were a number of different tools that may have been used in the past, and at least with ParentSquare you have that oversight. Whereas it gives like the superintendent, the district, school board, and the leadership the ability to say, hey guys, here's the deal. We have an approved channel, or we have approved channels, right? We have district provided email, we have ParentSquare, and then let's say our learning management system, right? Like these are the things that you can use. And be able to like draw that proverbial line in the sand and say, hey, like anything that's like any communication that's outside of this, like it's not an approved channel. So in instances where you need to pull a record of communication in ParentSquare, we go all the way back to not less than 7 years, so that if anything does come into question, you have the ability to pull that if needed. And that's also helpful for things like FOIA requests. And for those in the audience that FOIA is a funny word, it is. It stands for Freedom of Information Act. So there's certain information that you have to provide when submitted. So,
thank you.
My personal favorite thing about ParentSquare, I'm a dad of 2 daughters, and admittedly they're no longer school-aged. They're in their 20s now. I'm a grandfather. Thank you very much. It's new for me. But when my kids were school-aged, at any given time, I had no less than 5 to 8 paper-based calendars magnetized to my child, or to our refrigerator. And in our case, we had a whiteboard. It was a 30-day calendar, and we just transposed those individual calendars to the whiteboard, right? What ParentSquare does is it allows school leaders to associate the calendars, the appropriate calendars, to their group. So it could be a classroom calendar, it could be an athletic program, it could be a club calendar. But if I go down here and I just choose this one group, let's say, in this case, the example is baseball, I simply just grab I just associated the source calendar to my group. And for my students and my parents that are connected to that, they're going to see that calendar in ParentSquare. They see it. It's just, there's nothing I had to do besides just link it. And we also do Google for what it's worth. But when parents are looking at this through the lens of all school, all classes, all groups, it's going to show them a color-coded calendar reflecting only the calendars that they need. They don't have to do a bunch of filtering. It's right-sized based on how that guardian or student shows up in the student information system and what groups that guardian or the student have elected to become a part of. This saves guardians like a lot of time and peace of mind knowing that everything's in one spot. Anyway, just wanted to share one of my favorite things about ParentSquare.
Yeah, that's a great feature. Yeah, thank you for highlighting that. Any other questions from the board? Yes.
Hi, Jeremy. My name's Russell.
Hi, Russell.
Can you, I'm assuming you can't, you just didn't get to the feature, but you can turn off how you receive the communication as a parent. Like, it's not always going to come as email, text, and app notification if you want just one of them.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. So there will be default settings associated with ParentSquare, and it'll automatically opt everyone into text, email, and so with that, some guardians may not want email or they may not want text. Well, first of all, if you don't want text or email, there's an opt-out button at the bottom of your email with text, if somebody doesn't want text, they can just text the word stop, and it'll unenroll them for that. And yes, the district leader will, in those reports, will know that that message wasn't able to be delivered on that modality because the individual opted out. But what's more is guardians are also able to, through the web or the app, manage their unique preferences. And this is where it gets really, really cool. And I'm going to introduce a new concept that I didn't introduce before because I was concerned that it might have been a little more complicated. Not complicated, but I'm going to explain it now. Instant versus digest. Okay? So there are communications that happen at school that are like, we need to get a hold of people like right now, like right away. They need to see it now. I need their attention because I need, this is important. There's other communications that's like, hey, like when you get around to it, or hey, this is for your information. Excuse me. So what we did was we introduced a digest. What that means is if it is folks would receive a summary email and or a summary text and or a summary app notification at 6 p.m. with all of those non-time sensitive communications. And the reason why we did this is because, let's face it, if some parents, myself included at times, particularly in an election year, my phone dings more regularly throughout the day than what I may have asked for. Like people are sending me stuff that I'm just like, it's just too much. I can't manage it, right? So what I might do is I might toggle things to a digest, so my phone's only dinging for that stuff that like has been deemed as urgent or time sensitive, but I get that text or email summary at the end of the day. So I can balance and I can better manage that. And those folks that are like have a really low tolerance for frequency of communication, those folks are going to feel inclined to opt out or tune out of communication if we didn't do this, right? And I think we can all agree that opting out and tuning out is like not a desired outcome for anyone. Like the guardian themselves, they're like, I don't want to do this, I just can't keep up, right? So the instant versus digest is really, really handy. So this is how you would adjust it in the web. And in the app, we click the little hamburger button in the upper left-hand corner. And then on the left-hand side, we'll see count and notifications. And this is where we'd be able to manage it there. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Sorry, I get a little breathy.
Nope, you're good. Thank you.
Awesome. One final thing I did want to share is with the app, and I keep talking about it, like not every parent's going to download the app, and we don't want a barrier, right? So parents, that's why we invested so that parents can reply to a text or they can reply to an email. They don't have to download an app. But for those that do, I'm telling you, we are laser focused on ensuring that we're updating it regularly because let's face it, iOS and Android software is constant, like the operating systems are constantly evolving, so we're like on top of it. And what's more is we're really laser focused on ensuring that our ratings and we've invested really heavy in it, so to create a delightful experience for our guardians as well. So I just wanted to underscore that as well.
Great, thank you. Any other questions at this time?
One thing I did want to share is that, and I'm so sorry, Kimberly, and I didn't mean to interrupt you. Oftentimes, we are nowhere close to our computer when we need to send out communication, both staff and guardians, right? We're out and about and we have that quick question, I need to get a hold of someone. This little plus button, when we click on it, will give that user access to the functions that their role or their profile. This is like in my experience, I'm a building leader, but if I'm a parent, I would only see direct messaging. That would be the only option I would have. But the barrier of communicating that, that classroom communication or that direct message is literally sitting in someone's back pocket. It's we wanted to make sure that we are an aid to engagement. Because we believe that when a parent is well connected to their child's classroom, student outcomes are the strongest predictor of student success is parent engagement, bar none.
Great. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for your time. If there's any other follow-up questions, we'll certainly be in touch. But thank you for taking the time with us this evening.
It is my pleasure. Let me know how I can help you all. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night. In full transparency, my recommendation, if we are going to proceed with the Parent Square, if it's going to be my ultimate recommendation, then it would be a slow rollout. So I envision after the new year to begin with, because I feel like that's where it's been from, as far as the push and the concerns from parents, it's more been about the extracurricular activities and connections with the parents, and potentially starting with a group like a band group, for example, because I do know that they utilize another app to communicate with parents, the Cut Time app. So I would like to start like a slow rollout, and then eventually, if this is a tool that would work for us, I'd like to do an official rollout for our entire staff, of course, the fall of 2025. What's great about Parent Square is that there's a lot of features that we might be maybe overall, and Colin, you can chime in if you would, but we might be looking at features that we currently already do with other platforms. So for example, School Messenger. Well, Parent Square could become our new School Messenger, so we can start streamlining our communication to one platform. So that would be the ultimate goal. So, and that also could be our newsletters, for example. Newsletters, whether it's district newsletter from me, building principal newsletters, it would be nice to be able to reference one platform that Parent Square will be your two-way communication between school and home. So this offers, from the 2 Zooms I've been on with Parent Square, there's a lot of features that this offers. But I was very clear that I'd like to start with the two-way communication from school to home, and I'd like a slow rollout. And I've already spoken to our athletic director, Zach Zimmerman, maybe starting with athletics in the winter into the spring, and then also adding in a couple of our academic groups, for example, like band, because they use Cut Time. So just wanted to kind of see if you had any feedback from me, but I really like the idea of moving toward a one-size-fits-all two-way communication. And from what I understand, I believe the board would be supportive of moving forward with that recommendation as well. So any feedback?
Yeah, this one.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I mean, I'm not 100% sold on moving forward in something that's going to be budgeted that we're carrying into the following year when we no longer have that sinking fund and now we're going to general fund dollars. When you're looking at starting out possibly with the athletics or the band, who do you have doing the inputting of all this information? Because it's not a data load, because it has to be hand inputted who's on each team into the parchment system. I mean, is that person getting paid more? How, just throwing more responsibility there?
I think some of those details, Ms. Fred, still need to be ironed out, but from what I understand, there's a lot of syncing and a lot of time savers through utilizing Power School and to create those groups. But Colin, I don't know if you have more on that end for setting up the groups or not. I know that Brandon Markland's been in touch with Jeremy too on that tech end.
Mr. Markland did not tell me anything about the syncing.
Okay, of how it syncs together, yeah.
I just know
From a Power School perspective,
From a
making
Power-
student groups are very quick.
Yeah, it's
And then if
clicks.
we just need to send them
Yeah.
the list, they can pull those students and just pull them into the app. That,
Well, and yes, I do agree that it is very quick if you're not being interrupted constantly by opening doors and answering phones. It's not very quick necessarily if you discuss that with a secretary who is already overloaded, which we've got a discussion on that a little bit later. So I think that has to be thought through. I think we've got a way that's a free way to take care of it for the rest of this year. Yes, we want to look at something that, especially with the athletics and the extracurriculars, that we are following through with what our parents are asking for. But I think I would like to take a look at this for next year, in next year's budget, and make a more qualified decision as opposed to jumping on, and we're already spending $5,000 into next year's budget. I guess that's the way that I see it at this
Ms. Fry,
point.
can I ask a question with you? So is your expectation for us to find a system that doesn't have a cost? Just so I understand.
Well, we're using systems that don't have costs right now.
Which have caused community concern, which is why we're having this discussion
Well,
tonight.
but the community concern is not necessarily resolved yet with this.
I'm not saying that it
Yes.
is. I'm just asking if you were looking for a system that doesn't have a cost. I was just trying to, if you were looking more for something that has like, is a free system?
Mhm.
Okay.
So, yeah, well, I mean, at least, that's what we're utilizing right now. That's
Without
what
any
your staff is
control, though, from the
utilizing,
district
or
perspective.
emails.
Right, we just don't have any oversight from a
Correct.
district perspective.
Correct.
And so that's what we're trying to change. Okay.
We have coaches, right, we have some coaches using Remind, we have some coaches on group text, we had a coach send out Snapchat.
Correct. And
We are,
that's what
we're all
your
over the
staff
place.
members are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
You
We're
know,
all
so I
over the
do
place.
understand that, you know, and I'm also understanding that now we're looking at a cost of things. And I was on, when we first started rolling out, and we were told, go ahead and utilize whatever you can. I was on, in the school when we started doing that initially, we were being encouraged to do that. So, again, I just wanna really be mindful of our finances, especially with our sinking fund for next year.
Yeah.
And I think that we could possibly finish out the school year and then take a closer look at this as to how, and, I mean, talk to the staff about it. How does the staff feel about it? Have you talked to the staff about this yet? Because we would be rolling things out to the staff eventually for next year. I think some conversations need to be had before we just jump right in with this. That would be my thought process.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I think part of we don't want to go down the same rabbit hole of if we sync, we need parental permission. So it's more having them signing up for the item versus us inputting that. So I think that would be something that if we did this, we'd be right back in the same issue of, okay, you just sign my, they're on this team, you just sign up my child for this without my permission.
No, we definitely would take on the permission.
And that's, those type of details of
Yeah,
the rollout of
no, we wouldn't want to
of
repeat
that,
the same mistake.
Yeah, I would, who's gonna do the posting, who's gonna do, the uploads, who's gonna do that type of thing, should be.
My understanding, the group, like getting the group set up was not difficult. Obviously, the posting though would come from like the coach, I would assume, right, the coaches are communicating that information.
Yes.
Right, coaches, assistant coaches, you might have a parent leader, you know, posting that information to get like a slow rollout going was my vision for this.
Telling them, giving them training is gonna be incorporated, so, a feel for, I guess I would feel for pitfalls of what we have now versus what could this replace or help, or do we have in place now what we're trying, are we just replacing it for a cost? Just, I guess, comparison is what I would look for.
And I guess I was thinking more, I guess, big picture and streamlining all the communication for the district. So it's kind of like the big picture plan, but
I can see that as a
I
definite
understand where you're coming from.
benefit with, if every teacher is doing it differently, the parents don't know what to expect. How do I get communications from the school? How do I get communications from a coach? Or from some other staff member, or for something about a play, or for something about, you know, homework, or tests, or a school event. If we can put this all in one platform, I think the parents would definitely appreciate it.
I guess that was my understanding as to, you know, why to even explore this type of tool.
Sure. And then the fact that it's all tracked and we have access to all of the data. And we have access to every message that goes out. Then that's a good way
That's
for
correct.
us to be accountable and help to hold people accountable if anything inappropriate happens. Or if there are complaints from parents, now we can say, well, let's look at the receipts because we have them. So that's a definite benefit, I can see.
Just one person. Anybody else?
Are you familiar with any local districts that use this?
I think through the training, I will tell you, I believe he was at a professional development and he was working with like New York schools. I'm just going to use that because he did say they're onboarding about 70% of the school districts in New York. So as far as Michigan, I didn't ask specifically. It was more about Brandon Marthin did a lot of research. He found the Parent Square and started, you know, the Zoom and virtual meetings. And then we happened to speak to Jeremy, and he was just getting out of a PD and was mentioning that he is onboarding about 70% of New York schools. So definitely, it sounds like it's, you know, very credible tool.
Just thinking it would be nice to have a local conversation.
Yeah.
if there's a-
Yeah, I didn't ask about local, like Michigan local, you know, school districts.
He said 40% of the country's on it, right?
That's the nation.
That's what he estimated.
So it should be something.
Yeah, it would be nice to have. some
Like somebody local to,
feedback.
yeah, connect
Yeah.
with, yeah, for sure.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Are we gonna get a copy of this PowerPoint, so that we can go through that a little bit more?
I certainly can ask them.
Yeah, that would be appreciated, thank you.
Mhm. Moving on to our strategic plan, I did share that with you electronically. I just wanted to be able, I'm not going to go through the entire document. I did provide a hard copy in front of you for the strategic plan. And this is set to go from, actually this was before I stepped on as superintendent, but there's a strategic plan was created back in 2021. So this is a 5-year plan, but I thought it was appropriate to provide an update to the board of some of the initiatives and some of the efforts that have been either worked on or come forward even within last year into this year, especially. So that's what I can probably speak to most. So I did put it in front of you. Again, I'll highlight the areas. I do have certain highlighted with a yellow highlight that I would appreciate some more feedback in the strategic plan, as I feel like I don't have maybe the full narrative or what the board was looking for, because that will help me maybe set some priorities or goals to meet some of these meet some of the objectives that you were hoping to fulfill, as those of you who were on the board at that time were hoping to fulfill by 2026. In full transparency, I would tell you, with the new board members coming aboard in January, I would like to be working with an outside organization to maybe reset our strategic plan, obviously going over what has already been accomplished, but also to have the buy-in from the board in setting, really having us analyze what is going on in the district and what our current needs are. So again, this is back in from 2021 with a lot of change in leadership and board members. I would like to move forward with setting a strategic plan, whether that's going to be the fall of 2025, but it might not, my recommendation may not be to wait this out to 2026, as I do see that there's a lot of changes here, and maybe with our current needs, we would want to update this document. But with that said, obviously there's a lot of value, there's a lot of things that are going on in our district that I would like to bring to your attention. So I did highlight those in the different goal areas. So we have academics labeled here, learning environment, number 2, number 3, communication, number 4, personnel leadership, and number 5, facilities and operations. So I was just going to go kind of through the ones that were highlighted, unless you have specific questions. So I'm just going to go through each one, and if you have questions specific, or if you need some more information, I would really appreciate if you could provide some feedback. So we'll start with the first one, the academics. I did highlight again each of the objectives areas that was noted on the strategic plan. Are there any questions for academics at this time? And they're in bold print, the ones that are highlighted throughout each of the goals. Any questions? Okay. Number 2 is learning environment. There's no highlighted sections here, but if you have any questions, or if you'd like me to follow through, please let me know.
Mrs. Vaughn?
Yes.
The develop outdoor education opportunities.
Yep.
Maybe reach out to blanking middle school, Barb, Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
to see if there's an area where she would maybe look for a middle school pavilion as an opportunity to expand. So if the idea is if elementary OP is using booked the pavilion, we have a secondary one. If there's an area that maybe could be developed.
Probably have to kind of see, survey, see if there's interest in doing that. But you're saying, okay. All right, thank you.
So, Mr. Wade, a few months ago, Mr. Bruno came in and presented and was talking about STEM and STEAM and such. And there was one thing that I asked him about, like the use of the outdoor classroom. And he had said they didn't really have clear data on the scheduling of it, but they thought that that might be an idea. So I think that's maybe one where you're going with it, is like the balance in the scheduling between the OP and the middle school especially.
And I think there are specific teachers, projects that, you know, they utilize that, so, but yeah, like a balanced schedule. I can definitely ask and inquire that. Okay.
And I think the other piece of that, sorry to interrupt, but Mr. Faze had done a lot of outdoor classroom work before, and then I think that kind of faded off.
It ceased. It ceased.
It ceased.
Okay, thank you for that. Number 3, communication. So there's a couple highlighted areas here. If I could get a little bit more feedback or narrative, I would appreciate it on my end. Developing a marketing plan. I didn't know if this was more intended through your original bond, so any clarification for that, I'd appreciate it.
I believe it was marketing for students to bring them to our district. That was the way I understood
I
it.
don't remember the full.
I thought it was about creating like more whole.
And I think that you might be right, because I was initially put on the board for the 1 year to fill out John Miles' term, and this was already done. The strategic plan had already been done prior to us discussing bond. So I think that you're probably right.
I can go back and look at my notes.
Okay, yeah, no worries, thank you. So this could be as far as recruiting students or attracting students and families?
Or just, I don't think it was just about students, though. It was about the marketing of the school. And I think there's some things that, you know, we've talked about that you've been doing already, of communicating more of what the schools are doing.
Okay.
And getting that just communicated.
And to add to that too, I think it was also about marketing to our students and communities who live here that may be going elsewhere, you know, and keeping them, you know, in Almont, and like Mr. Walton said, just letting everybody
Strengths
know
of the
what we're
district,
doing.
right, okay. Well,
Not
that's helpful.
necessarily just about bringing in new people.
Okay, kind of catering to the parents who might be considering going to another district.
And just marketing about what we're doing, you know, who we are and what we're doing.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if you go to page 2, it starts with, throughout the planning process, the community and staff expressed high expectations that Almont Community Schools could become the school of choice in the area, build in the marketing plan. Can we keep students that are going elsewhere here?
Here, okay. Thank you for that, I appreciate it.
I know that there was a lot of parents that made a homeschooling choice as well. I know that that's the same thing as going to another district, but I know that happened this year as well.
Yep.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Keep an eye on that. Thank you, I appreciate the feedback. I also have highlighted in the communication that utilize school messenger system more effectively. Are there any comments or suggestions for that? A little bit more narrative.
I think that's just around the,
Overly communicating?
yeah, overly
Okay.
communicating the
Yeah.
things that don't apply, or having the right guards in place, where the right, kind of similar to the presentation you just saw, having those right communication channels, because, you know, does an LP parent need to get a reminder about high school yearbook? It probably doesn't happen a lot, but every once in a while I think it does.
Yes, absolutely.
Or that sometimes it just becomes this like 5 days in a row about the tennis camp or
Just
something.
being mindful.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
And so things like that. Or I know I've had some feedback from some parents that they make those changes, email, phone, text.
Yes, right.
And it doesn't stick.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was some of the
Okay.
feedback I got.
So even
too.
though you might be toggling or, putting in the system how you want to receive the communication,
Yeah.
it's not always following through?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's important to know, thank you.
Ms. Vaughn, some of
Yes.
the feedback from parents. The follow-up, check your email. The text message that says check your email, parents are saying that they just start tweeting it out and then they miss the important ones. So if you're going to send a text, send the text. If you're sending an email, send an email. don't send the text to check your email. It may be too much in terms of, even though trying to get them to get they're tuning out some messaging where they need to get it.
They get mad that they get off free.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
So maybe even a tutorial that we could put on there for
Push
them
out
to
those.
change it, or,
But it doesn't work, is that what
And
we're
it's a
saying?
power school thing, because I'll get parents that are irate calling our office, and I'm like, I have all of your
Then maybe
permissions turned off.
Maybe it's fell through though with Power School. We
Yeah,
might have
you're
to
having some-
push them a little bit more to
Yeah,
look
that
at
might be
their
the question
features,
as far
right?
as- Well, yeah.
Might have to go to
How
the
does that
next
work?
level.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you for the feedback. Number 4, I have personnel and leadership. I do have one highlighted here, increasing counseling services. I didn't know if that was also inclusive of our behavioral specialists and our mental health specialists. I didn't know if anybody had any more narrative to that, or if it was truly high school, like I think of high school or middle school counseling, adding counselor support.
I think at the time we were talking about just improving mental health services, and so I think we called it counseling. I don't think we have some of that terminology yet, for behavioral interventions and stuff like that.
So the increasing of the behavioral specialists
Yeah, I
is
just
kind
don't
of,
think we
okay,
had
Yes.
that.
okay,
That wasn't like a term that was used at the time, from what
Okay.
I recall.
okay. I appreciate that. Okay, and number 5, facilities and operations, improving signage around the district. I just wanted to see if there was more feedback or any concerns about signage around the district.
I think now that we haven't had any luck passing any bonds, which signage was included in most of those, maybe we'll have to try to find some alternate source of funding or donations for signage if we're going to be improving signage.
And Mr. Frederick, was there anything or added since you've been aboard for signage around the district?
No.
Anything added?
I don't know if that was directly talking about the out front signage like Oakeen in the high school. You know, as we've seen with the work through the bond, has quite a bit of money to bring those up to.
Yeah, the ones, right,
Yeah, to do
exactly in
that.
front of the
So,
buildings, right.
Yeah,
Right.
I know that we've done quite a bit of work as far as signage, making sure, especially along with the outskirts of the high school, you know, the no parking and things like that, which was really lacking, or was original signage from construction. So I would have to, we'd have to look into that and see what direction we want to go.
Sure. I appreciate it. I know it's a lengthy document, but I felt it was important to provide an update to you of things and efforts. I want to really give credit across the district, of course. This is anybody from, you know, as you can imagine, principals, teachers, support staff, making this, Jason Frederick, making a lot of these things happen for us. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Feel free to, you can give me a call or email me if you have any other questions or follow-up regarding anything that I provided as an update for the strategic plan, especially for some of our newbies coming aboard here. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Appreciate you putting this together.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you. I think that concludes communications. We had kind of a lot to go over, so thank you for your patience today. It's been just a lot of communication to get to you today.
Okay, that will bring us to our first questions and comments from the audience. Is this anything pertaining to the agenda? Anybody in the audience like to grab any time? Pertaining to the agenda only.
I'm able to speak now, or excellent. Thank you for your time. I'll take a couple of minutes just to address an item on the agenda in regards to the discussion around adding a additional part-time secretary to the Almont High School. I just wanted to advocate strongly for that consideration. I have Ms. Berkman here tonight, which I appreciate your presence as well, putting so much time today. Ms. Lemon and Ms. Ebley and Ms. Berkland are like a vital organ in our building, and to which I feel that we could not function without their presence. The fact that they're able to accomplish what they're able to accomplish in a day, in my opinion, is, and again, just my opinion, but I think it has a lot to do with their expertise and experience that they have here. Adding additional help to them, or rather, in my opinion, right-sizing their positions to make sure that their workloads are appropriate for them, I think would go a long way, not only in increasing their shelf life in the building, because they have put so much time in here, but it also would mean that when it is time to train and think about who's going to fill their very, very big shoes next, they will be more right-sized, those positions, that we aren't worried about maybe potentially overwhelming somebody stepping into that role. because I do, like I said, I feel that they're able to take on so much that they take on because of all the experience they have kind of navigating through this world, whereas somebody stepping into that role, if somebody steps into Ms. Berkman's role tomorrow, I think they're going to be swimming with the sharks. So I'd like to just very strongly advocate to right-size these positions by adding another part-time secretary, and I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have a question about this one? I do get to say 3 minutes, I don't know what Mr. Sand and timing over there.
Before we start, we just want to make sure that ours would go with the agenda, when it's about resignation and hiring for funding.
Can everybody hear her?
Would that fit with this agenda? Well, with the board's recent refusal to pay appropriate salaries to people who have been quitting or finding other jobs, which leaves theater, I'm going to use an example because it's important to me, open, and we don't have a director now. So how are you going to go about hiring or finding a new director? Because theater Faxon is an important place for many kids. Would you like to speak? I'm sorry.
I am one of the students who has been in the theater program for around 2 years now. Theater means a lot to me as someone who does want to go into a field of fine art and which includes musical theater, so it does mean a lot to me, and I really do hope that current generations as well as future generations will be experiencing as well as the future as well in regards of the current status of theater and new director.
It's the art department in general that isn't funded correctly. It's pushed to the side more. Sports, not saying that sports aren't important. They're just as much as a vice to some kids. But the art department, which is a vice for many more kids than people seem to realize, it's saving lives. And as it keeps being pushed further and further down, kicking the can down the road, it's going to have very serious negative effects that I think need to be recognized and be proactive instead of reactive to it.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Any questions or comments from the Board of Education? I have one. I'd like to publicly thank Mr. Roget for his service to the board, and I would like to welcome Ms. Rocher
Thank you.
to the board.
Thank you. Excited.
Okay, quick question.
We're going to get into the work session here now. Building Insight with Jason Better.
Before I get to the sinking fund, I just want to go over a couple quick things. We have a storm drain issue that we'll be making repairs over winter break. It's at that south end of OP. We discovered it while we were doing the sidewalk. We were still able to pour the sidewalk, but we're going to tie in those 2 downspouts right there that will then lead to the storm drain out to the parking lot. This will alleviate some of the winter ice buildup, and hopefully down the road I would like to do this with some of the other entrances where there's eaves troughs over those parts of the building. We have more playground equipment that's breaking. Most recently we had a slide that I discussed with you guys. I had ordered that slide. It actually just came in today. The particular slide that came in today, the price for that was $8,726. This slide that is just most recently broke as of yesterday is a different piece of equipment. It's due to its age, and they seem to be like a stress break where the mold injection was poured along the seam. So I don't know how old that, I don't think that some of that equipment's original, but it's just showing signs of age. It's nothing structural, but like I told OP staff today, there is a hole in it to where somebody could put their finger in it, and then that plastic's pretty sharp. And I didn't feel comfortable with duct taping it or doing anything like that, so we just shut that part of the slide down. I'll pursue getting another slide. It shouldn't be as much as this slide that came in today, because the slide that came in today is a spiral slide. It's a lot bigger. So it's just, our aging equipment. Axiom, I have a second interview tomorrow for a maintenance person. Of course, I've been without someone in that position since May 13th. Mrs. Vaughn had some really good negotiation skills with the ownership and the higher administration of Axiom. and they have agreed to, there will now be a line item on our monthly invoice, which will show a deduction of $1,500, $1,533.69, that will, as of right now, will at least be for the 7 months that I've been without a maintenance person, to the tune of $10,735.83, and that will continue to grow until we actually hire somebody. Like I said, I have a second interview tomorrow, so we'll see where that goes, but that was something that we were paying for, whether we had a person or not, so that should help some as far as adjusting that bill. This is kind of jumping ahead to some of the stuff on the sinking fund, but one of the things that I was hoping to be able to present tonight was I discussed RFPs for door replacements throughout the middle school and the high school. I may have to go back out to RFP for that because some of the alterations that I did to it, I think changes the bid. So in all fairness, even though I had 45 days, which was stated in the RFP, and that we could make alterations, I just think in fairness, I may go back out to bid to allow people to come back and to rewalk it. So I will not be presenting that tonight. I did have some luck as far as there was questions in the past regarding budgetary numbers and soft quotes in regards to track repairs. I reached out to quite a few people. There was a list that was provided by former board members of track installers that were contacted. The list was made years ago. I did have one particular company that got back a hold of me that gave me, and again, where do you draw the line between budgetary number and soft quote? Some of the previous 6 prices that I had got that were, $500,000 to $700,000 to include the 2 previous construction managers we had. This one here is just to resurface the track. It's not going to touch any existing asphalt, concrete work. It's just assuming that everything is acceptable and that existing conditions are good enough that they won't even be milling down any asphalt. They'll just be tearing up the base mat that's there and putting a new one down. To just go all black, that's $284,000. That is not that's not moving the high jump or any of that. That is just redoing what is there existing. And then the price changes from there. So all black was $284,000. If we went all orange, that would be $343,000. And if we were to do a black with orange exchange zones, that would be $300,000. This particular company, I had sent out the core samples that we had from a while back. He just said, yeah, I'd have to talk with my engineers about it. So, and I haven't heard back. But like I said, I had reached out to multiple other companies. Let's see how, if anyone else comes back to me. And I asked the same questions. Are you able to assist with us getting a budgetary number to take restorative actions towards our track to bring it back to a competition level? So we'll see.
All black, can I assume that means that the striping and everything is included, right? All black just means the surface
We want
material.
everyone to stay in their lane, yes.
Yeah, so that's part of it, right?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith. So there's informations that for us to get this, to get these quotes, we have to have specific information because it does change the pricing.
Mm-hmm.
So did they come back with the composition of the running layer? Is it latex? Is it polyurethane?
This one here was a urethane base mat structural spray system.
Okay. And ours has been a latex. So
Okay.
that's going to change the cost. Is it going to be 3/8 of an inch? Is it going to be half an inch? Is it going to be by millimeters with the spray system? So that changes the cost. So those are things that we need to set to go out so that if we do go out for bids, we have apples to apples. This is not the company saying, hey, I can do this, and then we decide. We need to figure out what we want to do and then go out so that we have all this information because you're allowing them to set the price. So a latex track is going, which is what ours is a different cost point. So that's information that we should have had down and should have had included in these processes.
Well, Mrs. Smith, and on that, I mean, it seems to me that we started getting more moss on the track when we installed that sidewalk to the, is that the north end of the football field? Yeah. I think that we've got to take a close look at drainage issues, you know, to spend this kind of money on something. I think that we really need to have a better idea of what it's going to cost to repair that track where it's going to be used for a longer period of time. And I know that, me personally, I've been going through Mr. Candela's information on what he was telling I think it was like the Advantage Kids or Kids Advantage Committee, which was what had been used to approve that sinking fund. And the track was the third thing on there that was supposed to get done. And he went back to the community after that sinking fund had passed, and we're still at, that track isn't done. So I think we really need to be getting a firm quote, not a soft quote. That's my impression.
Okay. We do have an existing RFP that's been made. Like I had said previously, if we are going to go forward with getting a firmer price, we need to be very careful that we're not, you know, we've already got kind of a black eye in the construction manager world. You know, 2 failed bonds, 2 different construction manager firms. I would hate to scare anyone else off by just getting a price just to get a price. I mean, if we're going to move forward, then let's move forward with it. But this would be a project of size that we would need to potentially go out for another construction manager to oversee this. Because to bring in civil engineers, to bring in the proper personnel, to determine what we need to do to make this right to last the long haul.
It almost seems
It's your
like,
committee, you're on it.
yeah, it almost seems like if the potential base, the floor price, is already at $300,000, then obviously it's only going to go from there if anything else needs to be done. So, you know, I guess we'll have to even look at the sinking fund to know it might not be worth going out for RFP if we're looking at a floor of $300,000. We might not be able to afford it.
Well, and that goes back to some of those soft quotes or whatever that I also included the Bart Mallow and the Roncelli price that, and as well as 4 others that in June I had sent to Mrs. Vaughn, that everyone came back to the drainage and that would put it over the edge, whether, you know, despite whatever surface or how thick we're going to go with, you know, it all comes down to some other items of the integrity of that entire area. So, and that's where we would start with, a construction manager, somebody that was going to oversee it.
Mrs. Vaughn, we had a construction manager when we started in 2014, and we had Hendricks. They put an RFP together for the service drive, OP roof, and the track with planning and drainage and all that stuff. So we need those plans.
We have.
So taking a look at that, so they've already went through and did all the planning of that drainage. So here's the plan.
Right.
That has to get out to go through, but we still have to sit down and say which type of track, which type of running material, how thick, all those pieces, those all come into play. But that drainage, so if we haven't shown that to companies, then they're just throwing out costs without, they're going to be able to get those plans.
So I guess I seek direction. You want me to start sending out an RFP for the track then? Or to send out the previous RFP to potential construction firms? Or
by previous RFP, do you mean the 2017 one?
The one that you're stating that Hendricks had read?
That one was for the designs. It wasn't for the RFP. The 2017 RFP is incomplete and inactive. He missed the exact same information and didn't talk about resurfacing. So we need, I would say if we want quotes, total replacement should be that, but you have to have the specific information in there. we talked about when we walked, tear off, mill down, tear off, don't have to do anything, or minimal. Those have to be the iterations to know these are what we can do. If we do the first one, tear off, and it's just, okay, they can seal, similar to what we did with the tennis courts, and they can say, okay, it's this cost, you get 5 years. You do this, it's this cost, you get 10 years, or the complete. Those are things, that's information we should get.
Mrs. Smith, is this something that we
Clarifying question?
yeah, is this something that we could have a ad hoc committee for, where Mr. Wade was on the ad hoc committee, since obviously he knows a lot more about track surfacing. That's not certainly my forte. But I think that, you know, in not passing two sinking funds, I know from my conversations in the community, they feel like they've paid for a track and they feel like they've paid for tennis courts with the last sinking fund. And they don't feel that the board then followed through on what was promised. And they felt under Joe Candela at the time that it was promised. They had been told afterwards it was promised. So I really would like to see us put this together, see what the cost is. I don't know, can you do drainage one year and the following year something else? I don't know, but I don't think that we're going to get a sinking fund passed in this community unless we come back and we have conversations about what we didn't do with the last sinking fund. And I agree with the community that our sinking fund is not an emergency fund. There were projects that were targeted with that sinking fund, the last one that we had. So that's where I'm at with that.
Mr. Walter, can I ask your knowledge for ad hoc? Wouldn't we just do building site, have, like, would it just keep it in building site? I mean, have we ever done ad hoc just for a specific, I don't know, that's why I'm asking.
We as a board have not done an ad hoc committee. I mean, it could be, you could also do an ad hoc committee with not just board members. It could be a board member or two, or I mean, Mr. Wade could be on there as track coach, not necessarily as a board member.
Okay.
But to have others that wouldn't be involved in, if the committee's even necessary. I don't know, I mean, Ms. Fred, I take some offense to your comments because I fully understand that a sinking fund is not intended to be used for emergencies, but there were things that had to be paid for. And if you can use a sinking fund dollars for those things like an OP roof repair, then why wouldn't you, instead of saying, well, we're going to hold on to that? Now, there's been a lot of missteps along the way, and I think everyone here was not in that position at the time when some of those missteps took place. So I understand your voice about the community and their views on it, but part of it just needs to stop and we need to focus on what we need to do. Yes, does the track need to be repaired? Absolutely. It's overdue. It's well overdue. The tennis courts got taken care of quite well, given the constraints that took place. There were a lot of mistakes that have taken place over the last, over previous years, and there was a lack of focus on it. Not for board members not voicing it though. It was talked about, and it got kicked down the road many, many times. And it's not Mr. Frederick's fault, it's not Ms. Vaughn's fault, it's other people's fault that were in those positions before. So we need to write it, absolutely, but it's not going to happen overnight either, unfortunately. Sorry, spoke my piece.
I would like to recommend that maybe we would start with a building and site committee. I'd like to meet with the board on the building and site and get some feedback, and if I could, that would be my recommendation. To, again, also to bring attention to our priority needs as well around the district, because I do believe that is my role, to make sure that you're informed of our priority needs around the district so that we can run school. So I believe that is going to be the priority, but I would like, and I'd appreciate the conversation with the Building and Site Committee.
I think it's a good start. Let's start there.
Mrs. Smith, just so that we know, building site is gonna change, so obviously it's not something that's gonna happen this month.
It may, I mean, we still have a couple weeks left in this year, and I know Ms. Vaughn, when she gets
Okay.
determined to get stuff done,
Yeah.
but it may not too.
Yeah,
So,
just so
It
that
depends
we're
on
aware that-
schedule.
And that if Mr. Wade is not on that committee, he would not be able as a board member to come to that committee meeting unless it is board as a whole, correct?
Correct.
Okay, just saying that then.
Yep, thank you.
I'm gonna have a question here too. It's gonna be for Kathy and for Jason. Can you tell me real quick, what's the balance of the super fund?
802 off the top of my head.
Okay, and then, do you remember what, roughly where you were at with earmarked projects?
315,000,
Okay,
plus another 41 of just slide breaking that's going on.
And that does not include our OP windows, correct?
Yeah, the 315, yes, I just did a tally tonight. That would
Oh,
include
it would
the
include OP windows, thank
Yes.
you.
so so that would bring us, if everything earmarked gets done at what we expect the cost is, we're pushing down to about 400,000 roughly?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Good question.
So is that agreeable? I'd like to start with the building site, and I'll see what I can make
I
that.
think that's excellent.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Thank you.
We're a funding.
Yep,
Wait.
yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jason, were you?
Yeah.
Oh,
So-
maybe Jason wasn't done
So,
yet.
you know, I'm not, because I guess I need some clarification. I want to continue on the sinking fund, but I guess I need some clarification on where these projects that the board has already turned me loose on, where do they stand? Like, for example, we're going to have a special session tonight to go over the items that were the middle school gym floor, which that was under the 28,000 threshold. But then we had excuse me, Colin gave me a new mouse and I'm not used to it. We also had the exhaust fans that was 29,260. We had the high school fire panel, which was at 161,877. And then tonight, which I didn't report last work session on the 19th of November, but I'm coming back tonight with a recommendation for OP windows at 99,360, which is below that initial 100K. I don't know if that'll be part of the special session, the windows, because by me bringing them up tonight, they wouldn't actually be available for the board to go over until this Monday's board meeting, as long as we all can make quorum to make a decision. So, and then also some of the things that you guys have given me the okay to continue on was, approximately $65,000 to rekey the district, and then potentially looking at a couple $100,000 worth of sidewalk, getting contractors lined up, which are so badly needed at the front of the high school as well as the front of OP. So aside from the projects going in, I guess we'll see how this all kind of falls as far as the building and site, to see where we continue with these projects.
Jason, I think what will be helpful is when Ms. Vaughn starts meeting with like the building and site, and kind of identifying some of that stuff. And then after the special meeting, you'll know where to go forward with those topics that are going to be brought up. And I think that's kind of your plan, right, with building and site, kind of isolate and then bring to the board and be like, okay, this is what we need to do. We can do these many things. What are we going to do? So I think it's still in progress, some of that.
Okay.
Does that make sense or no? Does that help?
I thought that's what we were doing.
What?
Or I thought that's what we were doing.
We are prioritizing
Okay.
projects and we're bringing them to the board like
Okay.
we have. And so that's why tonight's special meeting, we're going to make the recommendation for them to approve those projects. So we are still prioritizing and making recommendations to the board.
That's a real quick question for Ms. Fred. Since you have kind of an ear with this part of the community, let's say that the RFPs come back and it's $1 million, but we have 400,000 left in the sinking fund. In your opinion, how do we tell these people that obviously we have to look to the future, right? We can't address the track with the money that we have. I mean, what do you think is the answer going forward? Do we not pursue the track, or what do you think?
Well, I would be thinking that we would be putting money aside for our track.
From where?
It needs to be targeted.
From where?
It would be possibly the sinking fund, portion of it would be possibly the sinking fund.
Okay.
Because that's what it was intended for, and, just like when we were talking about putting in a new football turf, we were gonna need to be saving $50,000 a year to replace that turf in, a 5-year period of time potentially. I mean, we have to have those costs figured out somewhere where we are making sure that we are maintaining our facilities, because that is something that the community sees, and they're not aware of all the complications that have happened with funding, with where emergencies came forward with, absolutely. And there maybe wasn't as good a communication that was going on about that.
Well, I know Ms. Vaughn, that she communicated that all during the sinking fund, because that was.
I don't think there was a whole lot of attendance. I think people had made their decisions at that point in time, from what I'm hearing from the community.
Okay.
So, yes, I think that she did a good job of doing that. I don't believe there was a whole lot of attendance in the community for that at that point in time, from what I've heard.
Right, this isn't to try to argue about this, I'm trying to say looking forward. I mean, if this is gonna cost $1 million or more, and at best we have $800,000 in the sinking fund, but half of that's already earmarked of other things that are needs. I mean, what's the solution? Do we go out for a bond for the track?
Me personally, no, I wouldn't look at it that way. I would say to the community, we have set aside $250,000 from this sinking fund. We are setting aside for that track which was promised. And, in a 2-year period of time, we have to recognize that, I mean, if we don't go out for anything next year, and there is no election, because that would have to be paid for, an additional cost on us, we've got to get this community behind us for a 2-year period of time to get either a sinking fund or a bond passed. And this is what I have heard in the community as being a big one. What was promised, and it was promised over and over by Joe, and Joe was that, shake your hand kind of guy, look you in the eye. That was how he managed things. And then he left and things transitioned to Bill. And I don't know that there was as strong communication, but there was a lot of communication that happened after that sinking fund. Just from after it was passed. There was a lot of communication on it. So I think we have to show our community that we're going to honor that. And if we honor, I see the track as being something that people would see by coming to football games. That's going to be seen more maybe than tennis courts, and tennis courts are temporarily taken care of. I think that we have to show them that we have listened to what they've said, and that means taking care of that facility, which has already been in their viewpoint promise.
Right. And I agree with you. But if we literally don't have the money, I mean, if it's $1 million or you say.
Then we set the money aside, and we let the community know we're setting money aside.
For decades, if that's what it takes.
If that's what it takes. We've got to show them that they can trust that when we say this is what's in a sinking fund, we are honoring our word. And we're not taking it and putting it to other things when this is what it said it was going to be used for. And I know many of the people that were out there to encourage the public to vote yes on that sinking fund. And it was still a close vote. And they told the community, this has been promised. Because that's what they had received as information as well. So that's what our community remembers. So we have to show good faith. And for me, again, I just see the track as being something that's more visual. And whether it's, we pay for the drainage part the first year, and, then it's going to be X amount of dollars, then hopefully when we go 2 years down the road, they see that some progress has been made.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ms. Fred, I just want to, a couple documents. I had to pull it up because Mr. Candela did share some documents with me. I reached out to him a long time ago. But as far as resurfacing the track back then, there's a considerable, obviously, difference in the amount, right? So at the point, I'm looking at it right now, his document, $169,465 compared to, obviously, what it would take to upgrade or to repair the track. So at that point, whatever this is supposed to be done, 2014, 2015, you're looking at a significant, difference.
Oh, absolutely.
So, and I don't know if that, I don't know if that narrative has been shared. Yeah.
I'm sharing what the community has shared with me. And
No, I'm just
And
trying
yes.
to provide some context,
Oh,
that at the time, we're
absolutely.
talking about 170,000
Right. And
versus
it was
now
number
it's
three.
700,000
And
or
it was number
upwards.
3 on what he had going. I mean, I'd gone through all of 2014, all of 2015. One of the things that I really do like in the archive documents, all of his board reports to the board members were included in that. Because as I tried to go into some of our years, your board reports to our school board here are not in the documents that I found. Now, maybe they're somewhere else, but,
They are now.
oh, they are,
They
okay.
have
Ever
a
since
record-
it's been asked
June,
of me.
June or,
Okay, so is that in another area? Or was that actually done under the 2022 archive? Because I went into that. And typically when you go into October, you would see all 4 of Joe's posted there. So I have gone into it and I didn't see it.
I can't remember what one it's in, just right, I'll show you after the meeting.
Okay, thank you. But that's helpful. It was helpful viewing his notes.
Yeah. I don't know, again, going back to, and again, we'll revisit this in building and site, but unfortunately, I don't feel like we're speaking apples to apples because of what was proposed back then and the amount. It was supposed to be a resurfacing of the track. Now we're looking at, of course, a full replacement, right, potentially of the track and drainage. So it's going to take us upwards of $700,000 to $800,000. I just, I don't know how we're going to, again, other than over years, save for that, for that. And if that's, what we should be doing and allocating that money, I'm in favor of it. I would love to get that track back up. Of course, I think we all do in this room, and everybody in the community would like to see it. I just don't know if everyone has the full narrative of what was allocated back then in 2014 or 15 is a lot different than the ask now. So now
Correct.
with the inflated costs of $500,000-$600,000, we need a solution that's gonna, work for everybody. So that's kind of what we're gonna start talking about.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jason, were you all done with?
I have one clarifying comment. Just to be clear, and I think this is in the back of everybody's mind, we're not gonna have the sinking fund as a maintenance fund when we spend it all. And it's gonna happen whether we do it this year or 2 years down the road, that fund is gonna be gone. So we need to start budgeting now for the sinking fund not being an emergency fund, that those funds that when Jason has to repair something, like a slide, have to come from somewhere else in the budget. So the money in the sinking fund, we could probably earmark most of that for the track if we needed to, because we shouldn't be getting the slide repair done from the sinking fund. We should be coming from general fund in that case. It's nice to have because it's there, but in 2027 it's not going to be there anymore anyways, and so we need to prepare for that ahead of time. So that's all I got.
Finance, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
finance
Kathy.
is Mr. Wade, Ms. Pratt, and myself.
Checks written.
Check. I have one. 45325. It's, I think the third one on the first page, Kathy. 45325.
To Bronson's children?
Yeah. What was that for?
Bronson's Children's Hospital dodgeball donation. Dodgeball capstone project.
Oh, nice. Very nice. Thank you. It was just different, and I was like, oh, why not?
Yeah.
That's all I have, Mr. Ray.
Yeah. Just right.
45327, so right next to it. It was Robert Bud Longfall, and it's just for clarification purposes.
Says fall 2024 trainer, so I'm just trying to see. Oh, here we go. She had it under B for Bud Long. Okay. apparently this person looked at some of our games, August 29th in Marysville, September 6th in Lake City, September 20 Algonac, and so on.
Sideline trainer.
Yep,
An athletic trainer?
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And I've got 45432.
Wolverine Power.
That was the annual maintenance for the middle school kitchen generator.
Thank you. Do you want to see more on it?
No. I just, as we reorganize in January, for those that would end up on finance, we do check polls that will help with our audit, so.
Okay.
As we go through, if we have extensive ones, you can always email after.
Okay, no question, no, okay, thank you.
Is that it?
That's it. Take a second to check your account balances. Any questions?
I didn't have any questions on it.
Student activity funds.
Good by me.
So, contract updates.
Okay, I have this to read first, Kathy. So the Board of Education approves the employment contracts of all personnel. We have many staff members that are not part of any collective bargaining agreement and thus have individual contracts with the Board of Education for duties to which they are assigned. The recommended compensation updates have been discussed, reviewed with the board. Any changes have been discussed, or I believe we're in discussion now with the Board of Education. So Kathy, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, there's a few points to cover. The first one is we are proposing increases or additions. Number one is salary increases for para-eds and latchkey employees of 5% to begin in January. They did not receive any increases this fiscal year of 25 at all. And then I wanted to just kind of throw in, as you can see on the sheet, worked out the details that the November state aid introduced MIPSR's cost offset and a one-time deposit that we weren't sure was going to come through, and so that significantly helped our bottom line budget. And even though we're getting less in the Title I reduction, then that is still substantially, very helpful for our overall budget. The second item is the new part-time high school secretary that we would like to propose addition. In the proposal is the details of what that cost would be and the offset for that. The third item is for the central office, increases for cross-training the staff and increased responsibilities as recommended by our auditors. I have already implemented a plan. I've given extra duties and responsibilities to the central office staff. They have already proven to be very time-saving. One of the tasks that I have been working on since I've been here for 7 whole months now is creating a financial controls and procedures manual and a calendar specific to our district. So that will help and be beneficial in cross-training. We plan to, I'm creating this document and then testing the document on each other as we cross-train and testing our notes and testing our manual. I've been asked to share kind of my professional development. I've made several network connections with the Lapeer ISD. Amy Swantek is my idol. I have completed the Intro to School Business. I am attending a guide to navigating grants for education, which I'm very, very excited about. I did research a 3-year program that MSB offers, voluntarily certification program. It's all webinars. And then of course the MSBO annual conference is coming up at the end of March and beginning of April. And then, of course, daily I work on the budget minutes, and I hope to present that to you in the January timeframe. And then I just wanted to make a special note too that in January we would also like to propose an OPD of students, and I just wanted that to kind of just be plant a seed for that. Do I have any questions?
Yes, the well, it's right here. The increase to the MIPSers, there was a document sent out to all of us in November. Is that the same number, or is that now an additional?
So there's a one-time deposit that they had given, and then there's an additional increase in the cost offset. So they increased that offset by 5.75%.
So that's money we did not
Correct.
plan on.
That's right. We heard rumors that it was coming, but nothing's confirmed.
Mr. Wade, I like the fact with the new part-time high school secretary, how it is showing how that money has been offset with the overtime that the high school secretaries have been going through. So I'd like to see that, and that certainly makes sense. The central office staff, I guess I'm just curious, because I know that with all of the new hiring that's happened with other secretaries, they've been training new principals, training new deans of students, training new OP principals, and I mean, did all of the secretaries, is that what we're talking, secretaries, when we talk central office staff?
No,
or
we're
just
talking about our HR benefits coordinator and our accounts payable administrator and administrative assistant.
Okay.
The three ladies.
Ms. Fred, I believe the secretarial unit, the negotiations would be 2026, just looked at that, I'm sorry, 2025, June 2025 is when the contract expires.
Okay, that, I just wanted some clarification because I didn't quite know what the central office staff meant. And then I guess as we're going into that, and I know that it's in personnel also, but we're talking about the same situation. I think my understanding is that staff members who are not a part of a collective bargaining agreement make appointments with you to discuss why they have a raise, or they would like a raise, and kind of what they're looking for.
They will. Yes.
Well, I guess when I look at the central office administrative assistant, we've invested a lot of money in that position. When Michelle Campbell was here and leaving, there was, I don't know, was it 6 weeks of training? Plus, I don't know whether she was paid for additional training then in the fall of the year. That person does our pupil accounting. I mean, I'm wondering if there is any way at all, even though we've got a letter of resignation, that we can have conversations that come then before our finance committee to do something to negotiate that contract. I know that in that particular, with that individual, you have raved about that individual. And that is a huge loss because they do our accounting at the end of the year. That could be a loss of money for us if things are done incorrectly. And we've invested a lot of time in that person. They've invested a lot of time in Almont. Also in understanding with the drama that they have been absolutely amazing at. I personally, I would like to see some kind of further discussion happen if that's at all possible. I don't know if that's possible, if that's plausible, but I would like to see that if it's a possibility.
So I agree with everything that you're saying about that person doing a phenomenal job and above and beyond with the year and everything. However, I also respect that that conversation would happen from Mrs. Vaughn's perspective. And so because she is our employee, we would leave that to her.
So I would like to encourage her to do that. How's that? Does that make it clear?
No,
I'd like
that's
to
fine.
encourage her to do that.
No, that's fine. I just,
Yeah.
when you're saying it's not really for our finance.
Oh, well, but she would come to the finance committee if she was going to look to do an increase. That's where I'm saying she's the one that is responsible for a conversation.
Correct.
But it would come to the finance committee then, and then to be voted on by the board. So I guess I would like to see that happen, if that's at all a possibility. That was it for me.
Mr. Ray?
Good if you are.
So I'm in favor of what, what's in proposed as far as like a 5% increase in treasury secretary and stuff like that. That's all.
Kathy, outside. That's good. Thank you. Okay.
Hold on.
Jamie, that's
Yep.
3. I mean, maybe.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Just to
no,
confirm.
this Friday, yep.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to personnel resignations. The Board of Education may agree to a resignation, retirement at any time after replacement, if necessary, suitable to the school administration and board is obtained, provided that the circumstances underlying the resignation, retirement are valid in the opinion of the board and warrant a search for replacement. Julie Osco has resigned from her position as GSRP preschool aide. Amanda Myers has resigned her role as administrative assistant to accept a position in another district. Allison Boshaw has resigned from her role as a behavioral specialist at Almont High School for personal reasons.
Anyone have anything?
So personnel is Russ, Dallas, and myself.
I support the recommendation.
As I said.
What did you think?
I said I support the recommendation.
Okay, and I said something else. Yep.
I support it as well.
Obviously, I want to put it on a note, I guess, on record that if there's any updates or further discussion regarding resignations, that will be brought to your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to new hires. The Board of Education approves all personnel. Mr. Spear is pleased to recommend 2 new special education paraprofessionals. Mr. Luke Forty will be joining Almont High School in our CI room. Mr. Forty comes to us fresh out of student teaching and with a degree in education from Saginaw Valley State University. We are excited to welcome Mr. Forty to our team. Ms. Katie Ann Murphy is also joining Almont High School in our resource room. Ms. Murphy comes to us with over 10 years of experience working with youth in a variety of roles. Ms. Murphy is also an Almont High School graduate and is looking forward to returning to Almont High School in a support role for our students.
I'll say that I love seeing how lengthy the recommendation letters were, so
Yeah.
that was nice to see, because some are more thorough than others, so
Yeah.
I have no issue with either of those.
Okay. Is that free? Okay. According to policy 311, the board shall seek the advice of its administrative staff in creating a new position or increasing the number of professional staff members in an existing position, but the board reserves the right to act unilaterally. With the increased number of students at Almont High School, there is a need for an additional part-time secretary to help with the numerous office and building tasks. My recommendation is to support the high school with the creation of a new part-time secretary position.
Question. So with as what was shown during finance with the offset of overtime, is the expectation that will alleviate the need for that overtime there?
That is yes, and actually I had a conversation with both building secretaries just to kind of reiterate that, to bring on somebody is to, alleviate that extra workload, right?
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Support.
Mr. Russell, I have a clarifying comment.
Yes.
I see that office a lot through the months. It's a need.
Yeah.
It's been a need. So I support.
Yeah.
I think it's been a need since we brought in over 100 students in 8th grade, so I look forward to that. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to policy, the handbook update. The Board of Education approves the student handbooks of each school. The policies and procedures contained in the handbooks serve as a guide for our students. By approving changes to the handbooks, the changes become a part of district policy. Mr. Spear has presented an update to the Almont High School regarding the Almont High School handbook he presented to you tonight.
policy is Dallas, Tim, and Katie.
I would just like to see this presentation and take a look at it again, because we didn't really. look at it.
Absolutely, yep, I believe he said he'd be sending
Yeah.
that along, but I'll make sure that he does.
Same goes for myself.
Sure.
I'd like to see it.
Absolutely.
Can we assume it's a recommendation pending?
To table it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to our business organizational meeting. Let's see, we have bylaw 0150 states the Board of Education shall organize annually, not earlier than January 1st, immediately following an election, held on a November regular election date, and not later than the second Monday in January at a meeting held for that purpose. I would like to suggest we hold this meeting on Tuesday, January 7th, 2025, at 6:30 p.m. Yes, okay, that's at 3. And that would be, just to clarify, at Almont Middle School, right here, just to clarify. And the next one is the board committee restructuring proposal. Mr. Walton, I'm going to turn it over to you for a second.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's see if I can. So, just to, I don't know if the board all had an opportunity to review what I sent out. Colin, will you help me cast it up there? Maybe, maybe not. So no, is that no? I can talk through it, it's fine.
I can put up
You share it
whatever
to
you
me
sent
and
to
I
me.
can.
Either way, I can put it up. Colin,
All the people that want to do it.
Colin, I can help you.
Support.
I can put it up.
You should have a copy of it.
You can use mine.
No, that's fine.
I got it. I'm going to put it up right now.
Yeah, you got it, right?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes.
So, this item's been talked about a little bit, back and forth, if you can go to the next slide.
Yep.
So I just wanted to do a little bit of background and research on this, and to my knowledge, our current committee format, as far as the number of committees, so we have the committee format right now, of the committee of a whole, like we're doing right now, work session. In the past, we have been set up as individual committees, where it would be stretched out over 2 nights. With there being 5 committees, it'd be 2 committees meet one night, 3 committees meet another night. There's some overlap there when they do that, as far as who's attending which nights. As you all know, we currently have the 5 committees: finance, personnel, building site, curriculum, and policy. Previous board workshops have included discussions that really, the main focus of the board can fall under finance and policy. There's really a lot that can go in there. The personnel things like a new contract can fall under finance because there's usually money involved. Changes to curriculum or handbooks could be under policy and things like that. And then if you refer to the board orientation guide, it states the role of the Board of Education is not to run the schools, but to see that they are well run. So that's really where our focus should be. So if you go to the next slide, did some benchmarking, and so I had asked a few of you members. Well, I asked everybody on the board at the time. It's not obviously everybody that's here at the moment now, but any schools that you would like to see from a benchmarking standpoint. Was already looking at those within our league, those that are neighboring, so that includes like K-Pac and Dryden as well. And then just a few others, just some random things. I often look at Clarkston and DeWitt, because they're some of my favorites. Frankenmuth, and I think Alma actually fell into this as well. Long story short, not consistent. There's no consistency across anything. The only thing that's really consistent is finance and policy. There were quite a few that also had building in sight. Most of those had active bond projects, which sort of made sense. I reached out to some board members from those schools. Got a limited response, but one from Yale, as an example, said, yeah, they have building in sight, or the equivalent. It's because they have a bond and they're working through projects that way, so they're using it in that sense. So that was some good information. Brandon Schools also replied and gave some information about how they're set up. So that was helpful. Janae, can you have that information as well? Everything that I received was sent to you. So with that, my proposal to you, and this is nothing for action right now, I would say, new board in January, this might be a topic for organizational meeting, but for you to review, would be to reduce our current committee structure down to 3 core areas. Of course, policy and finance, and I would encourage keeping curriculum on. Of course, committee doesn't have to have an agenda item in every month, like we see sometimes, but in my opinion, with education being the focus, I think curriculum's a good one to keep the committee structure, and to have that on there. And I think that this will help with our board responsibility and focus, and further empower the administration. So that is it in a nutshell. I do have some information back up there. I've not taken this class, CBA 380, through MASB, but the information provided in there, the course description, looks pretty interesting. So if anybody wants to further educate themselves and learn. I did ask Amanda if anybody had taken it. She didn't have record of any of us current members. So I don't know. I don't think it's offered very often, it being a 300 level. But there might be some insights there. So.
Thanks for doing all that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dallas.
Any questions, comments?
Yeah. What would the proposed structure be? 223, 333, in terms of if you did the 3, you can't at 4, if we're doing committee of the whole.
Right. I don't know. Obviously, yeah, it can't be more than 3. And I think the other thing is that this would, if we reduce down, it may enable going back from committee of the whole to individual committees too. So that was the other thing in gathering it. And honestly, a lot was just looking at websites and reading some meeting agendas and minutes. Schools vary on if they have committee every month, or if they just have it when needed, or if they have it on, say, like either some are monthly and some are quarterly, different schedules and rotations. So it could be that way too. Like I said, curriculum doesn't really hit a lot, so I almost think like you could go with policy and finance as separate committees and separate meetings, and then only have to schedule curriculum when needed. So it would alleviate some of that. Anything else?
Any other comments, questions?
Makes sense.
I have a question, just because I'm new. So like, if you have a committee meeting of 3 people, like, is it no longer a work session then? Because you're not at a quorum?
It's just a committee meeting. So the point of staying under quorum is that there's no action. It's still recommended that you post an agenda. It's an open meeting, and you have minutes to the meeting. And I think there's still an argument or a little interpretation about that. Some boards might do it differently. But from what we've looked at and talked about before, it really should be, especially to play it safe. The difference in the history is that if, let's say, you're not on that committee, you're receiving the feedback or the minutes from that meeting, you weren't there to hear the conversation. So that's part of the reason why we went to committee of a whole, so that everybody can be here and hear the same conversation and not have it filtered or recycled and then coming through. But the challenge with it, and we've talked about it in some of our work sessions, not work sessions, workshops, thank you, is we have to really stay in our lane. And committee of a whole doesn't mean that everybody's there involved in it. It means that they're there to observe and only be part of their committee. So that's the balance between the two different ways to handle them.
So,
now that we're recording.
yes, now that we're recording,
Okay, that's gonna be-
we could actually be viewing it if we're not on that particular
Oh, okay.
committee, where you're not just getting, you'll still get the notes, but you can actually view to see the discussion that occurred. And then, I believe, we've talked about this before, then what would be appropriate is if you have a question that wasn't maybe asked, that whoever is in charge of that committee, you would send them the information to answer those questions back to you.
We should be doing that anyway.
And copy
even
your
right-
board president.
Okay,
Yeah, board president and committee chair.
okay, this is good information for someone who's new, like myself, thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other questions, comments, Alex?
Thank
you again
for all the time you put into that.
Dallas, thank you. Thank you, Dallas.
And as a reminder, if anything changes, the board operating procedures would need to be updated.
Thank you. Okay. Questions and comments from the audience? Anybody like to be recognized in the audience? Yes, for 3 minutes.
Joyce Berkland, I appreciate your support of a part-time secretary, although I didn't hear any mention of how many hours a week. I don't know if you can share that or not. And I know you are expecting no overtime, but sometimes things happen. We spent an hour last week with a student with a 911 situation. I had a case last week. 5 teachers out with only 2 subs, so I spent hours trying to find subs and then trying to figure out a plan to get those classes covered. Those are just things that happen that we have to deal with it, and then we don't get our work done because we're dealing with it. The other question I had was about the Parent Square app. I think a lot of it does the same thing as School Messenger, except for the two-way communication, but I didn't hear Jeremy mention anything about sending out broadcasts, like we use School Messenger to send out report cards, schedules, where it's a big, huge file with every student in there, and it sends out a report card individually to each family. I don't know that his Parent Square does that. He didn't mention it. Maybe it does. I don't know, but that's something that we definitely need to be able to do. And isn't a two-way communication, but it needs to be able to do that. So I don't know if you've looked into that at all. I think that's all I have. Oh, and the updating of the groups. Obviously, it's something that would have to be updated, cleared every year for every group. Big job. I don't think that coaches would be able to do that. I just don't think they would have the, some of our coaches can't even send us an email with an attachment on it. So it's, I think we got to realize who's going to be doing those things, and it's a big job. That's all I have. Thank you.
Anybody else? Are you in the audience?
I'm not, but can I add something? Is it,
Sure.
can I don't want to wait till January. I spoke about this in the past, and it's something that Kathy and I were working on, and I'm kind of excited I meant to bring it up and forgot it. October of '23, the governor passed the Clean Drinking Water Access Act, Filter First, to which I spent probably close to 10 months working on. We'd initially applied for $171,000. We were granted $139,650. All work and invoices have to be done by June 30th of '26. More information and a plan of action from the state, or more direction, is going to come out in January. My plan is to have the bulk of the work done over the summer, which will ensure, filtered drinking stations throughout. We have to have one drinking station per 500 children. Of course, I took into account any consumable water in the district, whether it be the kitchens, of course, the classrooms at OP have drinking fountains, stuff like that. Because we did get cut down by about $30,000, I got to look at, because initially my plan was to replace all the faucets as well, to where we could guarantee they were, non-lead faucets. So, but that's still a pretty big chunk for almost $140,000.
Great job.
Nice job.
Yeah, it's great.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Yes.
Ms. Fry.
I would like to thank Mr. Walton for his service. I know that sometimes we don't always agree on things, but I tell you what, you have been such a stabilizer on this board, and that has been greatly appreciated. Your knowledge base, the time that you spend in going out and finding out the information from the other districts is going to be missed. And so I just wanted to make sure that I had the opportunity to thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you. Ms. Smith, I want to recognize Coach Wade for his accolades of cross-country season, which I planned to do last month, but you weren't here. So, congratulations.
Very good.
Tri-City Times Coach of the Year.
Wow.
Three.
Thank you.
I have two big fans in my house. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, 100%.
Anybody else? Okay. Future agenda item. Okay.
Ms. Smith,
Mr. Walton.
I move the Board of Education during the work session at 8:38 p.m.
Support.
We will take 10 minutes and then, all in favor?